The pre-dawn darkness still clung to Fort Bragg when Maya Reeves pushed through the mess hall's back door. Her boots made soft thuds against the industrial kitchen floor, a rhythm she'd grown accustomed to over the past 8 months. She flicked on the lights, and fluorescent bulbs buzzed to life, illuminating stainless steel counters that gleamed like mirrors. 4:30, always 4:30. She tied her hair back into a tight bun, pulled on her apron, and began the familiar routine. Crack eggs, slice vegetables, prep the griddle. The work was mindless, repetitive, exactly what she needed. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, muscle memory from a different life bleeding into this one. Every movement efficient. No wasted motion. The hallmarks of training that never really left you. The kitchen became her sanctuary. In here, among the sizzling bacon and bubbling oatmeal, nobody asked questions. Nobody expected her to be anything more than Chef Maya, the quiet woman who made the best pancakes on base and never caused trouble. But this morning, her hands trembled slightly as she gripped the spatula. The dreams had come again last night. The same ones, sand and blood, screaming that got cut short. The weight of Johnson's body armor as she dragged him behind cover, already knowing he was gone. The valley walls closing in like a tomb. Morning, Chef. Maya's head snapped up, her body instantly alert, hand instinctively moving toward her hip where a sidearm used to rest. She caught herself, forced a smile. It was just Corporal Lisa Chen, the morning prep assistant, breezing in with her usual cheerfulness. "Morning, Lisa," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "You're here early, again." Lisa grabbed her apron from the hook. "You ever sleep?" "Enough," Maya lied. Sleep was a luxury she'd given up on. 3, maybe 4 hours a night if she was lucky. The rest of the time she laid awake, staring at the ceiling of her small quarters, counting her breaths like the Navy psychologist had taught her. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the kitchen filling with the rich aroma of coffee and frying sausage. By 5:45, the first soldiers began trickling in. Young faces, most of them. Kids, really, though Maya would never say that aloud. 18, 19, 20 years old, playing at being warriors before most of them had seen real combat. She served them with a quiet smile, remembering when she'd been that young, that eager. "Chef Maya, these hash browns are incredible." Private Danny Torres grinned at her from the serving line. He was a good kid, reminded her of her younger brother. Same gap-toothed smile, same earnest energy. "Secrets in the seasoning, Danny," she said, loading his plate generously. "Make sure you eat, long day ahead." "Yes, ma'am." He started to walk away, then paused. "Hey, Chef, you ever think about doing anything else? I mean, you seem like, I don't know, like you could do more than cook." Maya's hand froze for just a fraction of a second. "This is enough for me," she said quietly. But Danny was perceptive. "It's just, yesterday when Sergeant Morrison was showing us hand-to-hand combat techniques, you were watching from the kitchen window, and I swear I saw you wince at his form, like you knew better." "Eat your breakfast, Private," Maya said, not unkindly, but with enough finality to end the conversation. As Danny walked away, Maya felt eyes on her. She glanced up to see Master Sergeant Rodriguez leaning against the coffee station, studying her with the particular intensity of someone who'd seen combat. He was old school, 3-tour in Afghanistan, the kind of NCO who could read people like tactical maps. He approached the serving line, holding out his tray. "Morning, Chef." "Sergeant," she loaded his plate. "You move like a operator," he said quietly so only she could hear. "Known a lot of them, you got that same awareness, like you're constantly running threat assessments on everyone in the room." Maya met his eyes steadily. "I just cook, Sergeant." "Right." He didn't believe her, but he respected boundaries. "Well, you cook damn good, best mess hall I've eaten in." He started to leave, then turned back. "Whatever you're running from, Chef, hope you find peace with it." The words hit harder than she expected. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The morning rush continued. She served 243 soldiers. She counted them all, another old habit, and by 0800 the breakfast shift was winding down. Lisa was scrubbing down the griddle when the kitchen door swung open with unusual force. A full-bird Colonel Maya didn't recognize strode in, followed by several aides. But it was the man behind them who made her blood run cold. Brigadier General Marcus Whitmore. She recognized him from the news, from briefings she'd attended in her previous life. He had a reputation, ambitious, politically connected, and dangerously convinced of his own brilliance. His eyes swept the kitchen with barely concealed contempt, landing on Maya like she was just another piece of equipment. "This the mess hall everyone's so proud of." His voice dripped with sarcasm. "Looks like every other cafeteria I've seen." Maya said nothing, but every instinct she'd honed over 12 years of special operations screamed at her that this man was dangerous. Not in the way enemies were dangerous. Worse, he was the kind of leader who got good people killed. And he'd just taken command of Fort Bragg. General Whitmore's inspection of the mess hall lasted exactly 12 minutes, but to Maya, each second stretched like taffy. He moved through the serving area with the air of a man who believed his presence alone elevated the room's importance. His aides scurried behind him, tablets in hand, documenting his every observation with the fervor of disciples recording scripture. "The portion sizes are inconsistent," Whitmore announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. He pointed at a tray of scrambled eggs. "This is a military installation, not a buffet. Standardization, people. Everything should be measured, controlled, uniform." Maya bit the inside of her cheek. The portions were adjusted based on what she observed. Bigger servings for the infantry guys coming off night training, lighter for the admin staff. It was common sense, not chaos. Colonel Hendricks, the base commander Whitmore was replacing, cleared his throat. "General, if I may, Chef Reeves has an excellent system. Morale in the mess has improved significantly since she—" "I didn't ask for your opinion on the cook," Whitmore cut him off. "I'm here to tighten this base's operational efficiency. That starts with discipline in every area, including the kitchen." Lisa shot Maya a worried glance, but Maya simply nodded slightly. "Stay calm, don't react." Whitmore stopped directly in front of Maya's station. Up close, she could see the calculatedness in his eyes, every gesture rehearsed, every word chosen for maximum impact. He was a performer, not a soldier. She'd served under both types. She knew which ones got people killed. "What's your name?" he demanded. "Maya Reeves, sir." "How long have you been cooking here, Reeves?" 8 months, sir." "And before that?" A loaded question. Maya kept her expression neutral. "Other assignments, sir." Whitmore's eyebrow arched. "Other assignments in food service." "Various positions, sir." The lie came smoothly. She'd practiced it so many times it almost felt true. He studied her for a long moment, and Maya felt the weight of his scrutiny. For a heartbeat, she wondered if somehow he knew. But that was impossible. Her reassignment had been buried under layers of classified documentation. Medical leave, PTSD treatment, need-to-know basis only. "Well, Reeves, let me be clear about my expectations. This kitchen will operate with precision. Waste will be eliminated. Costs will be cut by 15%. You have 1 week to submit a revised operational plan." He turned to his aides. "Make a note. Kitchen efficiency review." "Sir," Maya spoke before she could stop herself. "Cutting costs by 15% will mean reducing food quality. These soldiers need proper nutrition for—" "Did I ask for your strategic input on nutrition?" Whitmore's voice could have frozen fire. The entire kitchen went silent. "You're a cook. Cook. Leave the decision-making to those of us with the appropriate rank and experience." Maya's jaw clenched so hard her teeth ached. She forced herself to nod. "Yes, sir." Whitmore swept out of the kitchen like a departing storm, his entourage trailing behind. The moment the door swung shut, Lisa let out a breath she'd been holding. "What an asshole," she muttered. "Lisa," Maya warned. "No, seriously, Chef. Colonel Hendricks was 10 times the leader that guy is. You can just tell." Lisa started aggressively wiping down a counter. "The way he talked to you, completely disrespectful." Master Sergeant Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, his weathered face set in grim lines. "Chef, got a minute?" Maya followed him outside to the loading dock where they couldn't be overheard. Rodriguez lit a cigarette, took a long drag, then spoke quietly. "Whitmore's got a reputation. Came up through political appointments more than field command. Word is he got booted from his last post, some kind of training incident he tried to cover up. 3 soldiers injured because he rushed a live-fire exercise." Maya's stomach twisted. Why wasn't he court-martialed? Connected family. Senator father, defense contractor uncle. He got laterally transferred instead. Rodriguez flicked ash from his cigarette. "He's here to pad his resume with a successful command tour before pushing for his next star, which means he's going to make changes just to show he can, regardless of whether they make sense." "That's a dangerous way to lead," Maya said quietly. "Yeah, well, that's the game sometimes." Rodriguez studied her. "You got that look again, like you're calculating angles." "Just thinking." "Think carefully, Chef. Men like Whitmore don't like being questioned, especially not by enlisted and especially not by women." He stubbed out his cigarette. "Keep your head down, do your job. Let the officers handle him." Maya nodded, but Rodriguez's words sat uneasily in her gut. She'd spent her entire career trying to prove that women belonged in combat roles, that they could lead just as effectively as men. She'd earned her trident the same way every other SEAL had, through blood, sweat, and refusing to quit when every fiber of her being screamed for relief. And now she was supposed to keep her head down while a glory-seeking officer made decisions that could get soldiers killed. That afternoon, Maya was inventorying supplies in the dry goods storage when she heard raised voices from the administrative building next door. The windows were open, and sound carried. "Deployment timeline moved up to 72 hours. 2nd platoon draws the assignment." Maya's hands stilled on the clipboard. "Sir, with respect, 2nd platoon isn't ready. They just finished basic infantry training. Half of them haven't qualified on advanced weapon systems yet." That was Captain Morris, 2nd platoon's commanding officer. "Then they'll learn in the field. Real combat is the best teacher." Whitmore's voice dismissive and final. "General, the intelligence reports for that sector are incomplete. We don't have current enemy disposition, don't know the—" "Captain, are you questioning my tactical judgment?" A pause. Maya could imagine Morris's face, the struggle between duty to his men and duty to the chain of command. "No, sir." "Good. 2nd platoon deploys Thursday at 0600. Briefing tomorrow at 1400. Dismissed." Maya's blood ran cold. She knew that sector. She'd operated there 18 months ago. The terrain was a nightmare, narrow valleys, limited escape routes, perfect ambush country, and if intelligence was incomplete. She grabbed the edge of the shelf to steady herself. Not again. She couldn't watch it happen again. Private Danny Torres was in 2nd platoon. That night Maya sat in her small quarters, staring at the locked footlocker under her bed. Inside were things from her old life. Her trident, commendations, photos of her team, 6 faces that would never age beyond the moment they died in that valley. She'd promised herself she was done. No more combat, no more decisions that got people killed. Just cook, heal, try to sleep without screaming. But tomorrow she'd have to break that promise. Or watch history repeat itself. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat at her small desk, the glow of her laptop screen casting shadows across her face. Using credentials she wasn't supposed to still have, she accessed intelligence databases she wasn't supposed to touch. Every click felt like a betrayal of the quiet life she'd tried to build. But the data confirmed her worst fears. The sector where Whitmore planned to send 2nd Platoon had seen a dramatic increase in enemy activity over the past 3 weeks. Local militias had consolidated. New weapons caches identified. Satellite imagery showed fresh defensive positions along the mountain ridges, exactly where they'd be most effective against an inexperienced unit moving through the valley. It was the same tactical situation that had killed her team, the same terrain, the same intelligence gaps, even the same confident commander who thought he knew better than the people who'd actually fought there. Maya's hands trembled as she saved the files to an encrypted drive. She had 48 hours to stop this. But how? She was nobody here, just a cook. Speaking up meant revealing who she was, why she was really here, everything she'd been hiding. At 0500, she was already in the kitchen, running on adrenaline and cold determination. When Private Torres came through the breakfast line, his usual cheerfulness was subdued. "Morning, chef," he said quietly. Maya loaded his plate, then leaned forward slightly. "Danny, I heard about the deployment." His eyes widened. "How did you news travels fast, I guess?" He tried to smile. "My first real mission. Should be excited, right? So why do I feel like I'm gonna puke?" "Trust that feeling," Maya said, her voice urgent and low. "Listen to me carefully. If something feels wrong out there, if your instincts are screaming at you, you listen to them. You understand." "Chef, you're kinda freaking me out." "Promise me, Danny." He stared at her, confusion and concern warring on his young face. "Okay, I promise." After breakfast service ended, Maya pulled off her apron and headed for the administrative building. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She found Captain Morris in his office, hunched over maps and deployment orders. "Captain, I need to speak with you." He looked up surprised. "Chef Reeves, what can I do for you?" Maya closed the door behind her. "It's about 2nd Platoon's deployment, sir. I have reason to believe the mission parameters are flawed." Morris's expression shifted from surprise to confusion. "I'm sorry, what?" "The valley sector you're being sent to, the intelligence is outdated. Enemy presence has increased significantly. The terrain offers no egress routes if the situation deteriorates." The words came fast, precise, military. She sounded like herself for the first time in months. Morris leaned back in his chair, studying her. "How would you know any of this?" Maya hesitated. This was the line. Once she crossed it, there was no going back. "I've operated in that region before. I have. Contacts who have provided updated intelligence." "Contacts?" Morris's tone was skeptical but curious. "What kind of cook has intelligence contacts?" "The kind who cares whether your soldiers come home alive, sir." He stood, arms crossed. "Look, I appreciate the concern, but I've already voiced my reservations to General Whitmore. He's the commanding officer. The decision's been made." "Then unmake it." Maya pulled out a flash drive from her pocket. "This contains current satellite imagery, signal intelligence, and tactical analysis. Just look at it." Morris didn't take the drive. "Where did you get classified intelligence?" "Does it matter if it saves lives?" "Yes, it matters. It matters a lot." His voice hardened. "What you're describing sounds like unauthorized access to military databases. That's a court-martial offense." Maya felt the walls closing in. "Sir, please. I've seen this exact scenario before. I've watched good soldiers die because a commander was too proud to admit he didn't have complete information. Don't let that happen to your men." "I think you should leave," Morris said, but there was conflict in his eyes. "And I'd suggest you forget about wherever you got that information, for your own sake." Maya left the flash drive on his desk anyway and walked out. Her next stop was the base chaplain's office. Chaplain Weber was a kind man in his 50s who'd counseled her through some of her darkest nights. He looked up from his paperwork as she entered. "Maya, you look troubled." She sat down heavily. "Father, if you knew something terrible was going to happen, and you had the power to stop it but it would cost you everything you've built, What would you do? Weber removed his reading glasses. That's quite a hypothetical. It's not hypothetical. He was quiet for a long moment. The right thing often costs us greatly, but the cost of not doing it is measured in different currency: souls, conscience, the ability to look at yourself in the mirror. He leaned forward. What are we really talking about here? Maya told him everything, not the classified details, but the essence, the deployment, her knowledge, her past, her fear. Weber listened without interruption. When she finished, he said simply, "You already know what you have to do. It'll destroy the life I've built here." "You haven't built a life here, Maya. You've built a hiding place." His words were gentle but firm. "There's a difference." That afternoon, Maya requested an appointment with General Whitmore. His aide, a lieutenant with a permanently exhausted expression, barely looked at her. "The general doesn't take meetings with kitchen staff. Tell him it's urgent, about the 2nd platoon deployment." The lieutenant's fingers paused over his keyboard. "What about it?" "Tell him I have intelligence he needs to see." "Intelligence?" The lieutenant's tone dripped with condescension. "From a cook?" "Yes." He sighed dramatically. "I'll pass along the message, but don't hold your breath." 2 hours later, Maya received her answer via a terse email. "General Whitmore does not require tactical input from non-essential personnel. Focus on your assigned duties." Maya read the email 3 times, her jaw clenching tighter with each pass. Non-essential personnel. She'd led missions that changed the outcome of battles. She'd made decisions with incomplete information that saved American lives. She'd earned her place among the most elite warriors the nation produced. And now she was being dismissed like a child, trying to sit at the adults' table. That evening, she sat with the other kitchen staff during dinner. Lisa was complaining about a broken mixer. Sergeant Rodriguez was telling stories from his deployment days. Private Torres was nervously checking his gear for the 100th time. Danny caught her eye. "Chef, you okay? You've been weird all day." Maya forced a smile. "Just tired, kiddo." But she wasn't tired. She was calculating, running scenarios, counting down options. She had 36 hours before 2nd platoon loaded onto helicopters. 36 hours to decide if she was going to watch good soldiers die to protect her anonymity, or if she was going to do what she'd sworn an oath to do, no matter the personal cost. That night, Maya opened her footlocker. She pulled out her trident, the gold eagle clutching a pistol, anchor, and Neptune's trident. The metal was cool against her palm. She thought of her fallen teammates, of the promises she'd made over their graves, of the weight of command and the burden of knowledge. Then she picked up her phone and made a call to Naval Special Warfare Command. "This is Commander Maya Reeves," she said quietly. "I need to invoke Article 138, and I need it done by tomorrow morning." The decision was made. There was no going back now. The command building loomed before Maya like a courthouse on Judgment Day. She'd changed from her kitchen whites into her service uniform, the first time she'd worn it in 8 months. The fabric felt foreign against her skin, simultaneously too tight and too loose, like wearing someone else's clothes. 2 Navy officers had arrived on base at 0600. Commander Patricia Vance from the Judge Advocate General's office and Lieutenant Commander Robert Chen from Naval Special Warfare Command. They'd spent 2 hours reviewing Maya's intelligence package and her formal complaint under Article 138, a rarely invoked regulation that allowed service members to seek redress for wrongs committed by commanding officers. Now at 0830, they stood outside General Whitmore's office. "You're sure about this?" Commander Vance asked quietly. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes that had clearly seen her share of military politics. "Once we walk through that door, your cover is blown. Everyone on this base will know who you are." Maya's hand instinctively went to the trident on her chest. "I'm sure." "General Whitmore won't take this well," Lieutenant Commander Chen warned. He was younger, maybe 35, with the lean build of someone who still ran the O-course regularly. Men like him don't handle challenges to their authority gracefully, especially not from women, and especially not from enlisted personnel. I've faced worse than wounded egos, sir. Chen smiled slightly. I don't doubt it, your record is impressive. 12 confirmed direct action missions, 3 Bronze Stars, the operation in Kandahar alone. Let's just get this done, Maya interrupted. She didn't want to talk about her record. Medals were just metal. They didn't bring anyone back. Vance knocked on the door. A muffled enter came from within. General Whitmore sat behind his desk, a fortress of mahogany and authority. 2 of his aides flanked him like bodyguards. His expression when he saw Maya was pure irritation. "What is this?" he demanded, looking past her to the Navy officers. "I'm preparing for a major deployment. I don't have time for." "General Whitmore," Commander Vance stepped forward crisply. "I'm Commander Patricia Vance, JAG Corps. This is Lieutenant Commander Chen, NSWC. We're here regarding a formal Article 138 complaint filed against you by one of your personnel." Whitmore's face reddened. "A complaint from who?" His eyes landed on Maya. "The cook, are you kidding me?" Maya stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. "Sir, I am requesting immediate suspension of the 2nd Platoon deployment scheduled for 0600 tomorrow. The mission parameters are based on incomplete and outdated intelligence that places the unit at unacceptable risk." Whitmore stared at her like she'd sprouted a second head. Then he laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. "This is absurd. You're filing a complaint because you disagree with my tactical decisions. On what possible grounds would a kitchen worker have the expertise to?" "I'm not just a kitchen worker, sir." Maya's voice cut through his. "I am Commander Maya Reeves, United States Navy, SEAL Team 3, serial number 598-40-72193. I have 12 years of special operations experience, including 7 combat deployments to the exact region where you're sending 2nd Platoon." The room went silent. Even Whitmore's aides looked shocked. Whitmore recovered first, but his face had gone from red to purple. I don't care what you claim to be. You're currently assigned to food service, which means nothing about my rank, sir." Maya pulled out her military ID and handed it to Commander Vance, who verified it and passed it to Whitmore. "I've been on medical leave, assigned to light duty pending psychological evaluation. That evaluation was completed last week. I'm cleared for full duty." Whitmore studied the ID, his jaw working. "Even if this is legitimate, it doesn't give you the right to question my command decisions. You're way out of line, Commander." "Am I?" Maya moved closer to his desk. "Sir, the valley where you're sending those men is a natural kill zone. Narrow approaches, elevated enemy positions, limited air support due to weather patterns this time of year. The intelligence you're using is 16 months old. I know because I helped gather it during my last deployment there. Your alleged experience doesn't." "It's not alleged, sir." Lieutenant Commander Chen stepped forward, handing Whitmore a tablet. "Commander Reeves's service record is fully documented. She led the operation that eliminated the Kandahar weapons cache in 2023. She was part of the rescue mission that recovered Ambassador Morrison in 2022. She has more combat experience than most officers at this installation combined." Whitmore scrolled through the tablet, his expression darkening with each swipe. "Fine, so you're a SEAL. That still doesn't explain how you have current intelligence on a classified deployment." Maya met his eyes steadily. "I maintain contacts within the intelligence community. When I heard about the deployment, I reached out. What I learned confirms that enemy presence in that sector has tripled since the last assessment. There are new fortifications, new weapon emplacements, and increased patrol activity. Sending an inexperienced unit into that environment is tactically unsound." "You accessed classified information without authorization. Whitmore shot back. That's a violation of. I used my existing security clearances, which remain active, sir. Everything I accessed was within my authorization level. Maya's voice remained calm, professional, even as her heart raced. The question isn't how I got the information. The question is why you're ignoring it. Whitmore stood abruptly, slamming his hands on the desk. Because I am the commanding officer here. I make the tactical decisions. Not some cook who thinks her Navy credentials give her the right to second-guess Army operations. Those Army operations are sending soldiers to their deaths, sir. The words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Whitmore's voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. You have no proof of that. You're basing this entire complaint on speculation and paranoia. For all I know, your PTSD has compromised your judgment. He looked at the Navy officers. I want her psychological evaluation reviewed. Someone suffering from combat trauma has no business making tactical assessments. Maya felt the blow land, but she didn't flinch. My psychological evaluation cleared me for duty, sir. You can't use my PTSD to dismiss legitimate concerns. I can and I will. Whitmore turned to his aides. Get Captain Morris in here and get me the deployment manifest. I want to review every single detail of this mission so we can put this nonsense to rest. General, Commander Vance interjected, with respect, Article 138 requires you to forward this complaint to the next higher authority for review. You can't simply dismiss it. Watch me, Whitmore glared at her. This woman has disrupted my command, accessed classified information under questionable circumstances, and is now trying to undermine a critical operation based on nothing but her own traumatized paranoia. I will not allow. The door burst open. Master Sergeant Rodriguez stood in the doorway, breathing hard. General, I apologize for the interruption, but you need to see this. He held out another tablet. Whitmore snatched it, his expression shifting from anger to confusion to something that might have been fear. What is this? He demanded. Updated intelligence from CENTCOM, sir. Just came through, about the deployment sector. Maya watched as Whitmore read, watched the color drain from his face, watched him realize that everything she'd said was true. The valley was a trap, and he'd almost sent 32 soldiers straight into it. The briefing room at 1100 hours was packed. Word had spread through Fort Bragg like wildfire. Something big was happening. Officers lined the walls. Senior NCOs filled the front rows. In the back, enlisted personnel craned their necks to see what the commotion was about. Private Danny Torres stood near the door, confusion written across his face. He'd seen Chef Maya walk past in a Navy uniform, flanked by officers he didn't recognize. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense anymore. General Whitmore stood at the podium, his face a carefully controlled mask. The updated CENTCOM intelligence sat on the lectern in front of him like an accusation. He'd spent the last 2 hours trying to find a way to spin this, to maintain control of the narrative. He was failing. This briefing concerns the 2nd platoon deployment scheduled for tomorrow morning, Whitmore began, his voice tight. There have been complications. New intelligence has come to light that requires us to reassess. The rear doors opened. Maya walked in, flanked by Commander Vance and Lieutenant Commander Chen. Behind them came 2 more officers, a Navy captain and a rear admiral whose presence made several people in the room straighten involuntarily. Rear Admiral James Keller, commander of Naval Special Warfare Group 2. The room fell into shocked silence. Maya walked straight down the center aisle, her footsteps echoing in the quiet. She'd clipped her trident to her uniform. The gold gleamed under the fluorescent lights, impossible to miss, impossible to misinterpret. Danny's jaw dropped. Several soldiers gasped. Master Sergeant Rodriguez smiled slightly, as if a puzzle he'd been working on had finally revealed its solution. Whitmore's knuckles went white on the podium. This is highly irregular. General Whitmore, Admiral Keller's voice cut through the room like a blade. I believe you have a matter requiring formal resolution. Maya stopped 10 feet from the podium. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the room, strong, clear, undeniable. General Whitmore, I am Commander Maya Reeves, United States Navy SEAL Team 3. I am formally invoking Article 138 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice to contest your deployment order for 2nd Platoon. She paused, letting the words sink in. I am requesting immediate review by higher authority of your tactical decision-making, which I believe places American lives at unacceptable and unnecessary risk. The room erupted in whispers. Maya heard fragments of conversation: SEAL, the cook, female SEAL commander, but she kept her eyes locked on Whitmore. His face had gone from red to an alarming shade of purple. This is a circus, an absolute circus. I don't care what rank she claims. Claims? Admiral Keller stepped forward. General, Commander Reeves has served under my command for 6 years. Her credentials are beyond question. I suggest you address her with the respect her rank and service record deserve. Whitmore's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment. Then he found his voice. Fine, Commander. He spat the word like poison. You've made your dramatic entrance, but this changes nothing. I am the commanding officer of this installation. Tactical decisions are mine to make. And tactical mistakes are yours to own, Maya replied evenly. She turned to address the room, projecting her voice the way she'd learned in officer training. For those who don't know me, I've been working in the mess hall for the past 8 months under medical assignment. I was placed on leave following a mission in the Helmand province that resulted in the loss of 6 members of my team. Danny felt his chest tighten. Chef Maya, Commander Reeves had been through that, had lost people. Maya continued, her voice steady despite the pain behind her words. That mission failed because we operated on incomplete intelligence, because a commanding officer was more concerned with career advancement than tactical soundness, because people like me didn't speak up when we should have. She looked directly at Whitmore. I will not make that mistake again. This is slander, Whitmore hissed. You're comparing me to... I'm stating facts, sir. Maya pulled out a remote and clicked it. The screen behind Whitmore lit up with satellite imagery. This is the valley where 2nd Platoon was scheduled to deploy. These images are from 16 months ago, the intelligence you were using. She clicked again. New images appeared. These are from 72 hours ago. Notice the difference. The changes were obvious even to untrained eyes. New structures dotted the ridgelines, defensive positions, supply routes. The valley had transformed from a quiet sector to a fortified position. Enemy presence has increased by an estimated 200%, Maya explained, her tone professional, clinical. New weapons emplacements here, here, and here. She pointed to locations on the map. Weather patterns this time of year make air support unreliable. The terrain offers exactly 2 viable exit routes, both of which can be easily blocked. She clicked to the next slide, casualty projections. The numbers were stark. An inexperienced unit entering this area with outdated intelligence would face a 73% probability of sustaining casualties within the first 6 hours. That's not speculation. That's tactical analysis based on current enemy capabilities and terrain assessment. Captain Morris stood up from the front row. Commander, how did you obtain this intelligence? I maintained security clearances during my medical leave. When I overheard the deployment briefing, I reached out to contacts within CENTCOM and Naval Intelligence. Maya's eyes swept the room. The intelligence has been verified by 3 separate sources. CENTCOM issued updated threat assessments this morning that confirm everything I've presented. Whitmore tried to regain control. Even if the intelligence has changed, that doesn't justify. General, you ignored warnings, Maya interrupted. Her voice was harder now. Captain Morris voiced concerns. You dismissed them. I attempted to present you with updated information. You refused to see me. You called me non-essential personnel when I tried to help you avoid sending soldiers into a death trap. The room was silent now. Every eye was on Whitmore. You wanted a quick victory, Maya continued quietly. Something impressive for your service record. Something to fast-track your next promotion. But victories aren't built on the graves of unprepared soldiers sent into situations they can't survive. That is enough, Whitmore's voice cracked like a whip. You are out of line, Commander. Your PTSD is clearly affecting your judgment. You're paranoid, seeing dangers that don't. Sir, the dangers are real, Master Sergeant Rodriguez stood up. I've been reviewing the intelligence Commander Reeves provided. She's right. That valley is a kill zone. Another officer stood, then another. Within seconds, half the room was on their feet. Private Torres found himself standing too, though he wasn't sure when he'd risen. Chef Maya, no, Commander Reeves, had been protecting them all along, had been trying to save his life while he joked with her about hash browns. Admiral Keller's voice cut through the murmuring. General Whitmore, I'm formally requesting that 2nd Platoon's deployment be suspended pending full intelligence review. Additionally, I'm recommending an investigation into your command decision-making process. Whitmore looked around the room, at the standing soldiers, at the senior officers watching him with barely concealed contempt, at Maya standing there with quiet dignity and irrefutable proof. He was cornered and he knew it. Fine, he bit out. The deployment is suspended, pending review. He turned to Maya, his eyes filled with venom. But this isn't over, Commander. You've undermined my authority, violated protocol, and caused dissension in my command. There will be consequences. Maya met his gaze without flinching. I can live with consequences, sir. What I can't live with is staying silent while good soldiers die. She turned and walked out of the briefing room, Admiral Keller and the Navy officers following. Behind her, the room exploded into conversation. And Private Danny Torres stood there, watching the woman who'd made him the best pancakes he'd ever tasted walk away, finally understanding that she'd been a hero all along. The investigation began within hours. By 1400, a formal board of inquiry had been convened in the base's legal offices. Maya sat in a small conference room, giving her statement to a Navy investigator while Commander Vance reviewed documents beside her. Walk me through your last mission, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell said, her recorder running. The one in Helmand Province, the one that led to your medical leave. Maya's hands tightened around her coffee cup. She'd known this was coming, but that didn't make it easier. February 14, 2024. My team was tasked with neutralizing a high-value target in the Sangin Valley. Intelligence indicated minimal enemy presence, maybe 15 hostiles, poorly equipped. Her voice was flat, mechanical. It was the only way to get through it. We inserted at 0300, 8 operators, clean approach, everything by the book. What went wrong? Maya closed her eyes, but that only made the memories sharper. The intelligence was outdated by 6 weeks. The enemy had reinforced. What we thought was 15 hostiles was actually 75. They knew we were coming. They'd prepared. How? Our commanding officer at the time, Colonel Richard Brennan, he'd been sharing operational details with a journalist embedded with another unit, trying to build his public profile for a political career after retirement. The journalist's communications were compromised. Enemy signals intelligence picked it up. Mitchell's pen paused. So the ambush was a direct result of your co's negligence. Yes, the word came out like gravel. We walked into a kill box. My second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Johnson, died in the first 30 seconds. Petty Officer Chen went down trying to pull him to cover. The others, her voice cracked slightly. We fought for 4 hours, waited for exfil that kept getting delayed because Brennan wouldn't authorize air support until he had better confirmation of enemy numbers. Jesus, Mitchell breathed. By the time reinforcements arrived, 6 of my 8 teammates were dead. I carried Petty Officer Sarah Rodriguez 300 meters to the landing zone. She died in the helicopter. Maya's eyes opened, haunted. She was 23 years old, kept apologizing for bleeding on my uniform. Those were her last words. The room was silent, except for the hum of the recorder. And Colonel Brennan, Mitchell asked quietly, received a letter of reprimand, retired with full honors 6 months later. Now he's running for Congress. Maya's jaw clenched. The official report blamed unexpected enemy reinforcement. My after-action report detailing his negligence was classified and buried. Commander Vance spoke up. That's why you reacted so strongly to General Whitmore's deployment order. You saw history repeating itself. I saw an arrogant officer prioritizing his career over soldiers' lives. Again, Maya met Mitchell's eyes. I will not watch another Danny Torres die because someone wanted a quick win for their service record. Mitchell nodded slowly. Let's talk about how you obtained the current intelligence on the deployment sector. Maya laid out her methodology, the databases she'd accessed using still-active clearances, the contacts she'd reached out to, the cross-referencing she'd done to verify information. It was thorough, professional, and entirely within her authorization level. So you broke no rules, Mitchell confirmed. No, ma'am. But you didn't go through proper channels initially. I tried. Captain Morris dismissed me. General Whitmore refused to meet with me. I exhausted standard options before invoking Article 138. Mitchell turned off the recorder. Off the record, you did the right thing, but Whitmore's going to come at you hard. He's already claiming your PTSD makes you unfit for duty. My psych eval. I've read it. Dr. Patterson cleared you completely, but Whitmore's lawyers will argue that your trauma makes you see threats that aren't there. Mitchell leaned forward. They're going to make this about you, not about his bad judgment. Maya had expected this. Men like Whitmore never admitted fault. They just found someone else to blame. That evening, testimonies began. Captain Morris was first, entering the inquiry room looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. Captain, did Commander Reeves attempt to warn you about the deployment? The lead investigator asked. Yes, sir. She came to my office approximately 36 hours before the scheduled departure. Morris shifted in his seat. She presented intelligence suggesting the mission parameters were flawed. And your response? I dismissed her concerns. Morris's voice was heavy with regret. She was a cook as far as I knew. I didn't think she had the expertise to assess tactical situations. Even when she offered you documented intelligence. I was skeptical of where she'd obtained it, and frankly, I'd already voiced my own concerns to General Whitmore and been overruled. I didn't think there was anything more I could do. Did you review the intelligence she offered? Morris hesitated. Not thoroughly. I glanced at it after she left, but no, sir, I didn't give it proper consideration. Why not? Because accepting it would have meant admitting I should have pushed back harder against the general. It was easier to dismiss her than to confront my own failure to protect my men. The honesty in the room was uncomfortable. Private Danny Torres testified next, still looking shell-shocked. Commander Reeves, we all knew her as Chef Maya. She was always kind, always present, but looking back there were signs. He counted on his fingers. Her reflexes were too fast, her awareness too sharp. The way she moved, the way she assessed people. I asked her once if she could do more than cook. She said it was enough for her. Did she ever behave inappropriately? No, sir, never. She cared. When she heard about my deployment, she seemed worried, told me to trust my instincts. At the time, I thought she was being motherly. Now I realize she was trying to prepare me for combat without breaking her cover. How do you feel about her actions? Torres didn't hesitate. Sir, she saved my life. She saved all our lives if we'd gone into that valley. He swallowed hard. I'd be dead right now. We all would be. Master Sergeant Rodriguez's testimony was more tactical. I recognized Commander Reeves wasn't what she appeared within the first week. 30 years in the Army teaches you to spot operators. But she wasn't hurting anyone, wasn't compromising anything, so I left her alone. Figured she had her reasons. When she presented concerns about the deployment, I looked at her intelligence immediately. Spent 4 hours cross-referencing with my own sources. Everything checked out. The valley was hot, the enemy was prepared, and 2nd Platoon would have been slaughtered. Rodriguez's voice was granite. General Whitmore ignored multiple warnings from multiple sources because accepting them would have delayed his timeline. That's not leadership. That's criminal negligence. The investigation expanded. Military intelligence confirmed Maya's analysis. CENTCOM provided testimony that they'd updated threat assessments 3 days before the scheduled deployment, updates that Whitmore's office had received but apparently ignored. A junior officer, Lieutenant Kim Park, came forward with explosive testimony. General Whitmore told me to bury the updated intelligence reports, said they were preliminary and not actionable. He ordered me to proceed with the deployment using the original parameters. Did you comply? Park's face flushed with shame. Yes, sir. I should have refused, but I was afraid of being relieved of duty. I failed in my responsibilities. The evidence mounted like sandbags against a flood. Whitmore had received warnings. He'd suppressed them. He'd prioritized his desired outcome over soldier safety. But Whitmore wasn't going down quietly. His lawyers produced Maya's medical records, highlighting her PTSD diagnosis, her panic attacks, her sleep disturbances. Commander Reeves is clearly suffering from unresolved trauma, Whitmore's defense counsel argued. Her judgment is compromised. She sees threats everywhere because she's trapped in the past, reliving her previous mission failure. This isn't about tactical analysis. It's about a broken officer projecting her fears onto a routine deployment. Dr. Patricia Patterson, Maya's psychologist, took the stand the next day. Commander Reeves does have PTSD, but her condition is managed, her judgment sound. If anything, her trauma makes her more cautious, more thorough in her assessments, not less. But couldn't her condition cause her to overestimate dangers? It could in theory, but in this case her assessment was objectively correct. Multiple independent sources confirmed the threat level she identified. This wasn't paranoia, it was expertise informed by hard-won experience. Part 7. Court of Inquiry, 850 words. The formal Court of Inquiry convened on a gray Monday morning in the base's main tribunal chamber. 3 senior officers sat behind an elevated bench, a Marine Corps colonel, an Army brigadier general, and a Navy captain. Their faces were impassive, revealing nothing as the room filled with personnel, witnesses, and observers. Maya sat at the respondents' table with Commander Vance. Across the aisle, General Whitmore was flanked by 2 JAG defense attorneys who looked like they'd stepped out of a recruitment poster, crisp, confident, expensive. The presiding officer, Colonel James Hendricks, called the session to order. This inquiry will determine whether General Marcus Whitmore's deployment order for 2nd Platoon constituted negligence or dereliction of duty, and whether Commander Maya Reeves's actions in contesting that order were justified under Article 138 of the UCMJ. The prosecution began with the facts. They presented the timeline, the deployment order issued with inadequate intelligence, the warnings from multiple sources, the suppression of updated threat assessments, and finally Maya's intervention. Then came the satellite imagery, devastating in its clarity. The before and after comparisons showed a quiet valley transformed into a fortified killing ground. Expert witnesses from military intelligence testified that an inexperienced unit entering that terrain would have sustained catastrophic casualties. Estimated losses, the panel asked. 60 to 80% in the first engagement, the intelligence officer replied grimly. Second platoon would have been effectively destroyed as a fighting force within hours. The courtroom stirred. Whitmore's face remained stone, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. Maya's turn came after lunch. She took the stand, raised her right hand, and swore to tell the truth. Commander Vance led her through the testimony methodically. Commander Reeves, please describe your qualifications to assess tactical situations. Maya's voice was steady. I've completed 12 years of active service in naval special warfare, 7 combat deployments across 3 theaters. I've led 43 direct action missions, conducted strategic reconnaissance in hostile territory, and served as mission commander for operations involving up to 60 personnel. And your experience in the specific region where 2nd Platoon was to deploy. I've operated in that area 4 times, most recently 18 months ago. I know the terrain intimately, the sight lines, the choke points, the seasonal weather patterns that affect air support. Vance pulled up the deployment maps. When you first learned of General Whitmore's plan, what was your assessment? Maya looked directly at the panel. That it was tactically unsound and would result in significant American casualties. The valley has limited ingress and egress routes. The ridgelines provide perfect overwatch positions for enemy forces. Standard doctrine would require air reconnaissance, artillery support, and experienced operators, none of which were included in the general's plan. Why didn't you immediately identify yourself and voice these concerns through your chain of command? This was the crucial question. Maya took a breath. I was on medical leave for PTSD following a mission where similar circumstances led to the death of 6 teammates. I was trying to heal, to build distance from combat operations. Revealing my identity meant confronting everything I'd been trying to move past. So you stayed silent initially. Yes, and I regret that. Maya's voice carried weight. But when I heard the deployment timeline and realized how unprepared 2nd Platoon was, I couldn't stay silent. I attempted to voice concerns through Captain Morris. I requested a meeting with General Whitmore. Only after being dismissed and ignored did I invoke Article 138. Whitmore's attorney, a sharp-eyed commander named Walsh, stood for cross-examination. Commander Reeves, you've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, correct? Yes. You experience panic attacks, nightmares, hypervigilance. I experience symptoms that are managed through therapy and medication, yes. Walsh circled like a shark. Isn't it possible that your trauma caused you to overreact to General Whitmore's deployment order, to see dangers that weren't actually present? Maya met his eyes calmly. The dangers were verified by 3 independent intelligence sources, confirmed by CENTCOM, and acknowledged by multiple tactical experts. This wasn't an overreaction. It was an accurate assessment. But you can't deny your judgment might be compromised by your condition. My PTSD doesn't compromise my tactical judgment, it sharpens it. I recognize the warning signs of inadequate planning because I've lived through the consequences. Maya leaned forward. I know what it looks like when commanders prioritize optics over soldier safety. I know the sound a mother makes when she's told her son isn't coming home. I know the weight of a flag-draped coffin. That knowledge doesn't make me paranoid, Commander Walsh. It makes me responsible. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Walsh tried another angle. You accessed classified databases without explicit authorization for this specific purpose. I used existing security clearances that remained active during my medical leave. I accessed information within my authorization level. Nothing I did violated security protocols. But you were working in a kitchen, Commander. You weren't assigned to intelligence gathering. I was assigned to food service as light duty. My rank, clearances, and security access remained unchanged. When I became aware of a potential threat to American lives, I used available resources to investigate. That's not a violation, that's initiative. Walsh tried several more approaches, but Maya was unshakable. Her answers were precise, professional, and impossible to discredit. Then came Whitmore's testimony. He took the stand with rigid military bearing, projecting confidence and wounded dignity. I make no apologies for my leadership decisions. Command requires bold action, calculated risks. Yes, the intelligence was imperfect, but intelligence is always imperfect in combat zones. General, you received updated threat assessments 3 days before the deployment, the prosecutor stated. Why did you not adjust your plans accordingly? The updates were preliminary, not confirmed. I made a command decision to proceed based on the operational timeline and strategic objectives. You ordered Lieutenant Park to suppress those updates. I ordered him to wait for confirmation before acting on unverified intelligence. That's standard protocol. Multiple officers voiced concerns about 2nd Platoon's readiness. You overruled them all. Why? Whitmore's veneer cracked slightly. Because sometimes leaders need to have confidence in their personnel. Yes, 2nd Platoon was green, but real combat experience is the best teacher. They would have learned, adapted, overcome. Or they would have died, the prosecutor said bluntly. That's a hypothetical based on worst-case scenarios presented by an officer with documented psychological issues. Whitmore gestured toward Maya. Commander Reeves sees threats everywhere because she's traumatized. She undermined my authority, violated protocol, and caused chaos in my command because she can't separate her past failures from current reality. Maya's hands clenched beneath the table, but her face remained neutral. The prosecutor pulled up casualty projections. General, military intelligence estimates 60 to 80% casualties if the deployment had proceeded. Do you dispute these numbers? Estimates are just guesses. I've seen operations succeed against worse odds. Have you ever personally led troops in combat, General? The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Whitmore's face reddened. My experience includes strategic command positions that. That's a no, General. You've never led troops under fire. Commander Reeves has done so 43 times, yet you dismissed her warnings as paranoia. The testimony continued through the afternoon. Witness after witness painted the same picture. Whitmore had ignored evidence, suppressed warnings, and prioritized his career ambitions over soldier safety. Private Torres gave emotional testimony. Sir, if Commander Reeves hadn't spoken up, I'd be dead. My whole platoon would be dead. She risked everything to save us, her privacy, her peace, her healing. That's not the action of someone with impaired judgment. That's heroism. As the sun set outside the tribunal windows, the final arguments began. Whitmore's defense tried to frame it as a clash of command philosophies, a reasonable disagreement blown out of proportion. The prosecution's closing was simpler. General Whitmore received multiple warnings that his deployment plan was fatally flawed. He ignored them all. Commander Reeves, despite personal cost, ensured those warnings could no longer be ignored. The evidence shows not just poor judgment, but willful negligence. Colonel Hendricks called for a recess. The panel would deliberate overnight. Maya walked out of the tribunal into the cool evening air. Danny Torres was waiting outside with a dozen other members of 2nd Platoon. They saluted her in unison. Maya returned the salute, throat tight. At ease, soldiers. Thank you, ma'am, Torres said quietly, for everything. She nodded, unable to trust her voice, and walked away into the gathering darkness, carrying the weight of what tomorrow's verdict might bring. The verdict came at 0900 the next morning. Maya stood at attention as Colonel Hendricks read the findings. The tribunal chamber was packed, soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder along the walls, officers filling every seat, the weight of collective anticipation pressing down like humidity before a storm. After careful review of all testimony and evidence, Hendricks began, his voice formal and measured, this panel finds that General Marcus Whitmore demonstrated gross negligence in his command responsibilities. He willfully ignored intelligence updates, suppressed warnings from subordinate officers, and ordered a deployment that would have resulted in significant American casualties. Whitmore's face went ashen. Furthermore, Hendricks continued, the panel finds that Commander Maya Reeves acted with exceptional moral courage and sound tactical judgment. Her invocation of Article 138 was not only justified but necessary to prevent a catastrophic loss of life. Her actions exemplify the highest standards of military service. Maya's knees nearly buckled with relief, but she maintained her composure. General Whitmore is hereby relieved of command, pending court-martial proceedings for dereliction of duty and conduct unbecoming an officer. Commander Reeves is cleared of all accusations and commended for her service. Hendricks paused, looking directly at Maya. Commander, the Navy owes you a debt of gratitude. 2nd Platoon owes you their lives. The room erupted. Soldiers cheered. Officers applauded. Private Torres wiped tears from his eyes. Whitmore stood rigid, his career crumbling around him like a sand castle before the tide. His lawyers gathered papers frantically. As MPs escorted him from the chamber, he shot Maya one final look, pure hatred mixed with disbelief that a mere cook had brought him down. Maya met his gaze without flinching. She'd faced worse enemies in darker places. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in Arlington National Cemetery, the morning sun casting long shadows across endless rows of white headstones. She knelt before 6 markers arranged in a semicircle, her fallen teammates from that terrible day in Helmand Province. She traced her fingers over Lieutenant Marcus Johnson's name. I kept my promise, Marcus. I didn't let it happen again. I couldn't save you, but I saved them. Her voice broke. I hope that means something. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying away words she'd held inside for too long. She told them about the mess hall, about tours, about finding purpose in pancakes and scrambled eggs, about learning that healing wasn't forgetting. It was choosing to keep serving despite the scars. I'm going back, she whispered. Not running anymore, not hiding. You guys taught me that leadership means standing up when it costs you everything. Took me a while, but I finally learned the lesson. She left dog tags hanging from each marker, her team's tradition. Brothers and sisters in arms never forgotten. At Naval Special Warfare Command in San Diego, Rear Admiral Keller sat across from Maya in his office. I'm offering you command of SEAL Team 5. They're deploying to the Pacific Theater in 6 months. Best operators we have, but they need someone with your experience. Maya stared at the folder in front of her, mission briefs, personnel files, everything she'd once lived for. The old Maya would have grabbed this opportunity without hesitation. But she'd changed. I'll take the command, sir, but on one condition. Keller raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating with an admiral. I want to split my time. 6 months operational command, 6 months training new candidates, especially candidates from non-traditional backgrounds, people who don't fit the stereotype but have the heart for this work. Keller studied her. You want to be an instructor. I want to make sure the next generation of leaders knows that courage isn't just about missions and medals. It's about speaking truth to power, about protecting your people even when it costs you everything. Maya leaned forward. We need operators who understand that real strength includes admitting when you're struggling, asking for help, standing up to bad orders. A slow smile crossed Keller's face. You've been through hell and came out wanting to make the system better. That's rare. He extended his hand. Deal. Welcome back, Commander. Maya's final day at Fort Bragg felt surreal. The mess hall staff threw her an impromptu party, complete with a cake decorated with a trident made of frosting. Lisa hugged her tight. You're the best cook we ever had, also the most badass human I've ever met. Master Sergeant Rodriguez shook her hand solemnly. I knew there was something special about you, just didn't know how special. It's been an honor. Private Torres approached last, carrying a small box. The platoon wanted you to have this. Inside was a dog tag engraved with 2nd Platoon, saved by Commander Reeves, February 2026. Below it, all 32 names. We're alive because of you, ma'am, Torres said, his voice thick with emotion. Half of us have applied for special operations training. We want to be like you. Maya's eyes burned. Then remember, being a warrior isn't just about how hard you can fight. It's about knowing when to fight, who to fight for, and having the courage to stand alone when everyone else stays silent. Torres straightened. We'll remember, Commander. She walked out of the mess hall for the last time, leaving her apron hanging on its hook like a retired flag. But she wasn't leaving empty-handed. She carried with her the knowledge that healing wasn't about forgetting trauma. It was about transforming it into purpose. The helicopter waited on the tarmac, rotors already spinning. As Maya climbed aboard, she looked back at Fort Bragg one final time. Soldiers stood in formation, saluting. Not just the woman who'd served them breakfast, but the commander who'd saved their lives. She returned the salute, then settled into her seat as the helicopter lifted off. Below, the base grew smaller, but ahead, the horizon stretched wide and limitless. Maya pulled out her phone and opened a photo. Her SEAL team, all 8 of them, arms around each other, grinning like they owned the world. 6 of those faces were gone now, but their lessons remained. Lead with courage, protect your people, never stay silent when lives are at stake. She'd learned those lessons the hardest way possible. Now she'd spend the rest of her career making sure others learned them too, without paying the same terrible price. The helicopter banked west, toward San Diego, toward new missions and fresh challenges. Maya closed her eyes, finally at peace with both her past and her future. She'd been just the base cook, until she'd been exactly what 2nd Platoon needed. A warrior who knew that true courage wasn't just about facing the enemy. It was about facing yourself, your trauma, your fears, and choosing to serve anyway. The woman who'd hidden in a kitchen had found her way back to the light, not by forgetting the darkness, but by refusing to let it win. And somewhere in the vast sky between who she'd been and who she was becoming, Maya Reeves smiled. She was going home. The end.